Hello, everybody. Hello. So great to see you. So great to see you. Just realizing there's quite of a delay. Hello, everybody. It's Thursday. Thursday, April the 23rd. Hope you're doing fantastic today. Let me get this video pulled up. Let's see. There we go. Thursday, April the 23rd. Today we're making the Hourglass Quilt block. It is a 12-inch quilt block. That's how it finishes in your quilts. Today's block will actually measure 12.5 by 12.5 when we're done. And the pieces and the example block are up on the screen. Hello, everybody. Hello. So great to see you today. Yeah, today we're doing a square and a square that is in a square. I don't think we've done that yet in any of the blocks. Today's the 31st quilt block. 31 quilt blocks. Hello, we have 4 questions lined up for today and then 5 quicker this or that questions. So if you want to play along, that would be great. If you're watching this on the replay, you can answer your questions down in the comments section. And I love to go back and read all of your answers. Most of all, I hope that we enjoy this social time throughout our day. Thank you so much for spending part of your Thursday with me. The main point of this video is so that we have a chance to catch up with one another, have a little bit of social time, and just a fun distraction in our day, right? I hope we also learned something. This is the first time I've ever done an hourglass quilt block before. So, yeah, first time for this quilt block. I think there's several different variations of an hourglass block if you were to Google it. However, I thought this one looked really fun. Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much, Ms. Chantel, for moderating my chat today. Make sure you stay tuned to the end. I'm going to show you at the end of today's video the block for tomorrow, so that if you're taking notes, you can jot down the pieces and have those ready for tomorrow. Jackie, you're looking forward to this quilt block. Me too. Me too. It'll be the first time I've ever made it. So hopefully everything will come out right. Hello, everybody. Hello. Yes, thank you for the reminder, Ms. Chantel. If you have any questions for me, if you could put them in all caps, that would be really helpful. As I'm streaming through looking to see if we have questions, that makes it really easy for me to see them. Yes, Miss Joy, this quilt's going to be really colorful when we're all done. Patricia, the name of this block is actually called Hourglass. But if you notice the way that this block is made, it's made with a square and a square inside of another square. I'm not quite sure why they call it an hourglass. That's a good question. Miss Linda, you have tornado warnings. Oh goodness, we'll be praying about that. Please stay safe. Please watch your weather updates as the weather goes across the country today. Yes, keep tuned to your weather updates. That's a good question. I'm not sure why they call it an hourglass, unless if you just glance at it, it kind of looks like an hourglass maybe. I don't know. Thank you so much, Miss Joy. Joy Wilson, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. If y'all give me a thumbs up, that would also be really great. That would help my channel so much. Tamara, you're just not seeing the hourglass. I know, I don't know why they call this the hourglass block. I'll have to do some Google research. All right, y'all, I have my pieces cut out for today. We're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. So great to see you. Thank you so much for spending part of your Thursday with me. I love that. Thank you so, so much. Let me switch over some screens now. I'm going to show you my pieces. I've used the same colorway as the example. Okay, so I have a dark green, a light green, an orangey color, and the beige fabric. We have a little bit of prep work to do before we can actually lay out this block. So let me go ahead and get started with that. Let's get started with that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take each one of our blocks. Let's see. There should be two that are 5 3/8 by 5 3/8, the dark green. We're going to start with that first. So let's move this board out of the way. I have two here. I know they're kind of blending in with one another. I'm going to line up both of my fabrics. I'm going to turn one right side down so that you can see it a little bit better. Let me just check the measurements on this. I might have cut it a little bit wonky. Ta-da-da-da. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 3/8. I cut one of my green pieces too small. Yes, I did. Hold on a second. I cut it too small, y'all. I'm glad I turned that over so that I could see that. Let me cut out another one because I want our block to come out right. I want it to be right, so let me just cut out another one real quick. Glad I caught that. I would have been wondering why it doesn't all line up in the end, right? 5 and 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 little marks. Turn it around. I'm so glad I caught that. So as soon as I get this block cut out, we're going to start with question number 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 marks over. All right, let's try this again. Let's try it again. Let's line up both of these blocks. Goodness. My cutting is all off today. Oh no. Here we go. It feels like a Monday. It feels like a Monday. There we go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut these two pieces that are 5 3/8. We're going to cut them right down the middle, corner to corner. So we're making our first cut for the day. We'll go ahead and start with the questions. If you want to play along, that would be fantastic. Right down the middle. Now we have 4 dark green triangles. If you were to write a book, what kind of book would you write? If you were writing a book, what kind of book would you write? So here's our first task for this block is we're creating 4 triangles with the dark green pieces that measure 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. So great to see y'all this morning. What kind of book would you write if you were going to write a book? The next thing we're going to do, because we have one more thing before we can start laying out this block, we should have a beige piece that measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. That's the next piece we're going to get ready. This piece of fabric, this square, we're going to cut 2 times. We're going to cut corner to corner on the diagonal 1 time, right down the middle. And then we're going to flip it around and we're going to cut this 1 more time in the opposite direction. So I just like to line it up right on one of the lines on my mat. Line up the corner and this bottom edge of the triangle. Make sure my cut is nice and straight. Just like that. And we're going to cut it 1 more time. This is going to give us 4 beige triangles. And that should be all of our cutting for this block. We can move this back in. So 4 beige triangles and 4 larger green triangles. And there are all of our pieces for this block. I think it's interesting how we're all different. We'd all write different kinds of books, right? I'm going to give you a second just to catch up if you're sewing with me live. Let me clean up this mess of the dark green fabric I had to cut on the fly. I'm glad I caught that. I'm glad I caught that. So now this is all of the pieces that we have and that we need for this block. What we should have left over is 1 dark green 5 by 5 inch block, 2 orange ones that measure 2 inches wide and 9.5 inches long, and then 2 light green strips that measure 2 inches wide and 12.5 inches long. Okay, those are the pieces that we don't have to cut whatsoever to lay out this block. So I'm going to move all my pieces off to the side and go ahead and lay this block out and give you a chance to catch up if you're sewing with me live. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this 5 inch by 5 inch dark green piece and just lay that right in the middle. We're going to build this block out from the middle. We're going to take our 4 beige triangles and put one on each side, just like this. Like that. Then we're going to take our dark green triangles and we're going to fill them in on the 4 sides of this square. Ooh, I like that a lot. Yes, I do. And then we're going to take the orange pieces. We're going to lay one at the top and the bottom. And I know it looks a little funny now because all of our pieces include seam allowances, right? So it's going to look a little funny until we start piecing this together. And then the longer green, light green strips are going to go on the left and right. Just like that. So this is how we lay out our pieces. I'm going to give everybody a second to lay out your pieces with me if you're sewing with me live. That's an interesting question. Is it normal to make a DNA test in the USA? I don't know. Does anybody else have the answer to that question? I have no idea. Oh, Barbara, I didn't realize you had lost your voice. So glad you're feeling better. Yes, I'm glad you're feeling better. So while everybody is laying out their pieces, let's go ahead and ask question number 2. What is something that you avoid at all cost, if possible? Name something that you avoid or you try to avoid at all cost. Like, I don't like confrontation, so I try to avoid it if I can. I try to avoid confrontation if I can. Sometimes it's just necessary, but I try to avoid it. Yes, I do have a design board tutorial. I made the design wall behind me during a video, and you can find that on my channel. Miss Barbara, I thought you were awful quiet last night during the Zoom. I thought you were awful quiet. That makes a lot of sense now. Yes, I try to avoid confrontation if at all possible. I don't like doing it. I don't like confrontation. Sometimes it's necessary, right? Sometimes we have to step up and face confrontation, but it's just my personality. It's not my favorite thing to do. Yes, you can also make the smaller version as well. Yes, you'll see right next to it, right there, that's a piece of styrofoam and a flannel pillowcase. It's a portable little design wall. Oh, me too, Pat. We sound just the same. I will walk. Oh, I just don't like it. Thinking about it makes my palms, makes them cold and clammy. I don't even like to think about it. Ella, we just went live a few minutes ago, and so far we've done the prep work. We've cut the beige square and the 2 dark green squares and made triangles with them, and then we've laid out our block. We're actually getting ready to go ahead and start with our piecing. So if you're making this block, you can like go back and watch that part. Yeah. Public speaking used to be a big one for me too, Joan, but to do the videos, I had to sort of overcome that one. Now we're going to go ahead and make sure that our seam allowance is set with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I just did mine, and we're going to start in the middle of this block. Okay, now this is going to look a little bit funny because our triangles are actually a little bit longer on the sides than our square, right? I'm going to show you that. Here's our square that measures 5 inches across, and the base of the triangles is a little bit longer than that. Okay, so what I want you to do, what's going to be really helpful, is if you take this 5-inch square and you fold it directly in half, and take your iron and just press a little crease right in the center of this block. Just like that. That's going to give you a little reference mark to line up the tip of your triangle. Then you're going to turn it back the other way, fold it in half, and press a little crease right there as well. This is going to give us a little reference mark to line up our triangles with. Now, I'm not quite sure you're going to be able to see that on camera. Maybe a tiny little bit. Now I have pressed into my green square a little crease right down the center. That's going to help us line up our triangles, okay? I want you to flip your first triangle pretty side over. Match up this raw edge and match up the tip of your triangle to that crease mark that we just made. Just like that. You're going to notice you have some fabric extending beyond both sides of your square. That's going to go in our seam allowance, okay? We're going to take this over and sew from edge to edge with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you line up this raw edge nice and straight all the way across. So we have our first seam done. Now we're going to bring over the exact opposite triangle right across the square. We're going to bring it over and we're going to flip it onto our square and match up the tip of our triangle to the creased line. Let's open that one up and just finger press it out of the way. The tip of our triangle should be lined up with that middle crease, and we're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. So here's our first 2 pieces. Yes, Miss Jacqueline, we are making a block a day. This is our 31st block, 31 days straight in a row. I'm going to put them all together as a quilt, but you can do so many things with all of these blocks. You don't have to make a quilt with all of them. Here's our first 2 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and give these a press. I'll be pressing my triangles so that my seam goes towards the darker green fabric. So we are coming right along. This is what we look like at this point. And the next thing we're going to do is sew on the other 2 beige triangles. Just like we did with the first 2, we're going to flip this triangle over and line it up with this mark that we made with the iron by pressing our square right in half. So the tip of our triangle is lined up with that center mark. We're going to sew from edge to edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to get these 2 triangles on, press them, and then we're going to take a short break so that everybody who's sewing with me live can catch up. So we have our 3rd triangle on. I'm just going to give that a finger press out of the way for a second. And we'll bring in this last beige triangle, flip it over and line it up. Finger press out of the way. There we go. Get that centered and sew that seam. So we have just completed the first square in a square part of this block, right? I'm going to go ahead and give that a press. Square and a square. A lot of popular quilt blocks are made up of this unit right here, square and a square. So that's what we look like right now. Pretty, right? Pretty simple too. Here's our first square and a square. Let's go ahead and move on to question number 3. What is your favorite ice cream flavor? Jill, that's a really good idea. Most of these traditional quilt blocks go back way before any of the mainstream designers. These are very traditional quilt blocks with very traditional shapes. I stay away from patterned blocks by designers for that very reason. That's why I won't do a tutorial on many of the most popular quilt block tutorials out there, because those are copyrighted patterns and blocks. It's so great to see everybody. I'm just going to give y'all a minute to catch up if you're sewing with me live. Coffee flavored ice cream, mint chocolate chip, maple nut, yes. Moose Tracks, that's one of Harlan's favorites. Rocky Road, that's one of my dad's favorites. I like orange sherbet every once in a while. Diana, yeah, you can put anything on vanilla ice cream, right, and make it into something else. So great to see everybody. I can't really wait to take my time and read through all of your comments. This is where we are. We have our center square inside of a beige square at this point. The very next thing we're going to do, it actually goes like this, right? It actually goes just like that. Now we're going to attach the first 2 green triangles directly across from one another. It doesn't really matter which side you start with. They're both the same. We're going to go ahead and flip this green triangle over. If you need to repress this to get a center mark going the other way, then go right ahead. I kind of use the points of this square as a center reference, but you could most definitely repress this in the opposite direction if that gives you a more helpful centering line to go by, because we're going to line up the raw edge of our triangle with the beige piece, and we're going to line up the green tip of our triangle to the center of our block. For this one, I'm just going to eyeball it. This should go straight across and meet that point right there. We're going to go ahead and sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to go ahead and flip it around. Just finger press that first triangle out of the way. We're going to bring in the opposite triangle. Flip it over and line up the middle point of our triangle right across, just like that. And we're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So here's our first two triangles. Are we frozen? I hope not. I'm still moving on my screen. I'm going to go ahead and press these. This time I'm going to be pressing towards the triangle. We have a little bit of bulk in this seam right here, and it just really naturally wants to lay flatter being pressed towards this outer triangle. So we're coming right along. There's our first 2 green triangles. And at this point, we have 2 more green triangles. We're going to line that up just like this. This should go straight across to meet the point of this square right in the middle. And we're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to get these 2 next triangles done. Then I'm going to take a break so y'all can catch up if you're sewing with me live. There's my first triangle. I'm just going to press that open with my fingers and bring in the very last green triangle. This will complete our second square in a square, right? Line that up, bring it to the edge, just like that, and sew that seam. I'm going to give these 2 triangles a quick press, and then we're taking a short break. I like the color combination between this dark green fabric and the beige fabric. That looks pretty sharp. Pretty sharp. There we go. So you'll see we have a square within a square within a square, right? Square and a square and a square. That's a good question, Miss Wanda. You could make a practice block and see what that would look like. Then take pictures and share it on the Creative Crew group so we can all see. I'm going to scroll through and see if we have any questions. Looks like we're good. My phone keeps flashing. I don't know if that means we're freezing up periodically or not. I have a green light, so it looks like we're going good. What is an attic window? It's probably easier if you Google it to see a picture of what an attic window would look like, because it would be so much easier than me trying to explain it. I know I wouldn't get it right. I know I wouldn't explain it exactly right. So here we are. We have our square and a square and a square. This is the middle of our block. The middle of our block. Let's go ahead and move on to question number 4 for today, because I want to give y'all a chance to catch up if you're sewing with me live. Do you like to plan things out, or do you prefer to be more spontaneous? Do you like to plan things out, or do you prefer to be more spontaneous? Like a date night. Do you like to make plans and plan it all out, or do you just like to go on the whim and be spontaneous? Maybe with your projects, do you plan it all out ahead of time, or do you just start and see where it takes you? Miss Hazel, I'm not quite sure why they call it an hourglass. I should have Googled that before we started. So it looks like predominantly we're a bunch of planners. Hello, Miss Sally. Thank you so much. Hello, Miss Janet. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for moderating. Sally likes to be spontaneous. I could have guessed that about you, Miss Sally. From your style of quilting, and you like the more modern quilts, I could have guessed that you like to be spontaneous, and I think it pays off really well for you. I have to be more organized and plan stuff out, or else I end up with something I'm not really happy with. So here we are with our square and a square and a square. The next part for this block is we're going to attach these two smaller pieces. These measure 2 inches by 9.5. And one's going to go on the top right there. And one's going to go on the bottom, just like this. Directly across from one another. We're going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then press that open. So let's bring this on over here. We're going to bring this to the machine. Get these on. Make sure to line up that raw edge. Just like that. And while we're right here, I'm just going to flip this block over and attach the second orange strip right on the opposite side. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and set these seams, and when I press it open, I'm going to be pressing this seam towards the orange piece. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and press those. I'm going to set that seam first. Set it, and then press it open. Yeah, I live in my planner, so it kind of makes sense that I would plan out all my projects, right? Every day I check my planner, I make my to-do list, I check stuff off. I'm the same way with all of my projects. Now, if it comes to date night, I'm a little bit more open and flexible with that. Like we might say, okay, we're going to spend the day going to antique shops. So we won't really have a plan of which ones we're going to. We'll start with one and then we'll mosey to the other one. We might stop and get something to eat, but we have a plan of what we're doing for the day, but the rest is sort of spontaneous. You want to know what I like about this block so far? It's one of those blocks that look more difficult than it actually is, right? This has been pretty simple so far. As long as you remember to match up your points with that center, it goes together pretty easily. And this is the first time I've made this block. So this is where we are. We have the orange pieces attached. You can guess what we're doing next. We only have 2 more pieces to add. But I'm going to give you a second because I know several of you are sewing with me live. So great to see everybody. Thank you for spending part of your Thursday with me. Oh, it feels like this week has just flown by. I know it really hasn't. It really hasn't flown by, but it kind of feels like it a little bit. I love going to antique stores. I like going to thrift shops too. You never know what you're going to find. Sometimes you find like great big bags of fabric stash or someone's yarn stash that they've donated you can get for a really good price. I love looking for stamps at thrift shops. I love rubber stamps. You can always find some really cool stuff to put into junk journals in the thrift shops. So great to see everybody. So great to see you. So great to see you. So now we have 5 this or that questions, and those go through pretty quick, right? Those go through pretty quick. Our first this or that question. Donuts or chips? If you were going to have a snack right this minute, would you pick donuts or chips? Right now I'm kind of feeling like a savory, salty snack, so I would say chips. But I love a good donut too. We have 2 more seams to finish up this block. We're going to turn the light green fabric right over on the left and right side of this block. We're going to match up that seam from one side to the other, and that gets attached with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Ooh, Leah, you have tons of stamps? Oh, I love stamps. I love to use stamps in my journals and in my planner. So let's start with this first green strip. Make sure you line up those raw edges. Keep it nice and straight as possible. And while we're right here, we're just going to flip it right around and bring in this last strip right here. This strip measures 2 inches by 12.5 inches. We're going to line it up. and sew from one side to the other. You know what I was just thinking about this block? I was just thinking that if you went ahead and did some pre-planning and you just spent some time cutting out all of the pieces for multiple blocks, you could really chain piece together several of these hourglass blocks in one sewing session and knock a bunch out, right? This has come together pretty quickly, and even though it looks more difficult than it actually is. I love blocks like that. I'm going to go ahead and press my seams. I just set them. I'm going to press these seams over just like this and give that a good, nice press, nice and flat, just like that. Yeah, I think you could knock out several of these hourglass blocks pretty quickly if you cut out all the pieces ahead of time. And then just assembled your blocks in stages, right? I like this block a lot. It looks way more complicated than it actually is. It's a pretender. It's a pretender block. That's what I call the blocks that look way more harder than they actually are. There we go. That is our finished block. Second, this or that. Do you prefer to call someone or to text them? Do you prefer to call someone or to text them? I see many people debating over this subject, call or text. I think for most real quick conversations, they warrant just a simple text message, right? You just have a question, you just need a question answered really quickly. Every once in a while, I like to have a phone call. But I'm not one who loves to sit and talk on the phone. I never have been. Even as a teenager, I did not love just sitting and talking on the phone. It was not my favorite thing to do. I kind of knew that calling would win out predominantly over texting. There's a few texting in there. There's a few texting. I'm not someone who loves to sit and talk on the phone. I just never have been. Every once in a while. Every once in a while. Yes, I love this block. I love this block. It came together pretty quickly. Look, I kept all of my points. This one's a little beyond the point, but my points are in there. Not too bad for the first time I made this quilt block, right? Not too bad. Yeah, I'd say this one was pretty simple. So, Lynn, so I'm not the only one who doesn't like talking on the phone. Jill, you're the same way. I just, most teenagers, back when I was a teenager, everybody loved just talking on the phone. I just haven't been one who talks on the phone. Yes, I love this block. I love it. Here in just a minute, I'm going to give everybody a chance to catch up if you're sewing with me live. But here in a minute, I'm going to show you block number 32. Block number 32. I love reading all of your answers. We'll move on to this or that, number 3. Do you prefer leggings or jeans? Leggings or jeans? If I'm staying home, I like stretchy pants, so I pick leggings. But if I'm going out of the house, jeans. If I'm staying home, I prefer to be comfortable with the leggings or the stretchy pants. If I leave my house, though, they're coming off and I'm putting on some blue jeans. Leggings or jeans? That is this or that question number 3. Beautiful block. I cannot wait to add this to the design wall behind me. Yes, that is so pretty. That is pretty. I guess maybe I should have paid attention to the direction of my houses. Oh yeah, no, they're going both the same way. Good. Yay, okay. So I'll end up putting it on the wall so that my houses are going this way. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Pretty, pretty block. I liked this one a lot. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the pieces for tomorrow's block because I like to leave those on the screen for a few minutes before we end up the live, so you have a chance to get them all written down. Tomorrow's block, we're going to be making the honey choice. This is going to be a 10-inch quilt block. It'll finish 10.5 by 10.5. We're using 4 colors in this quilt block. Look how pretty that is. Here are all the pieces that you need. And I did something really fun with this, y'all. I made 2 different examples for you to take a peek at. I made a mock-up of what this block would look like if you just laid it out side by side, made your rows, and put your rows together. But then I said, I wonder what this block would look like if you turned it on point. So the example to the right is this block put on point. Pretty fantastic, right? Pretty fantastic. Yes, I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a few minutes so that you have a chance to write everything down. But if you miss it, y'all can always come back and pause the video and write it down. The dreaded pinwheels. Miss Jill, you can do it. You can do it. We're going to walk through it tomorrow. We're going to walk you through it tomorrow. Yeah, it looks pretty fantastic on point, right? It does. Oh, it looks like a honeycomb in the quilt. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Sure does. How big are the finished pinwheels? Miss Vicky, I have not made this block ahead of time. Tomorrow will be the first time I am making the Honey's Choice block. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They should be 2.5 by 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 5 inches. Just doing some math off the top of my head. No. 4, 8, 9, 10. 4.5 by 4.5. 4.5 by 4.5, I believe, is the size of the pinwheels. When we make them tomorrow and we put them together, I'll give you a for sure definite answer on how big your pinwheels are. But I believe 4.5 by 4.5. Oh, that's a good question. How do you calculate and measure the triangles with the on-point version? I have an app, the Robert Kaufman app, and it does the math for me so that I don't have to sit there and try and figure that out. If y'all have never heard of the free Robert Kaufman app, give that a look because it'll do all the math, y'all. It'll figure out how much fabric you need, how much binding you need. how much backing fabric. It does square and a square measurements for you. It does quarter triangle measurements, which is, let's see, you would need 4 quarter square triangles if you put this on point. It'll do the math for you, and it'll do the math if you want to make this block on point. Yay, you think the math is right. I think so too. 4.5 by 4.5 for the pinwheels for tomorrow. So if you have some in your stash, pull them out if you want a head start. Yes, Robert Kaufman. Kaufman with a K. K-A-U-F-F-M-A-N, I believe is how you spell it. Butterfly blocks. I don't have any planned, but I can write that down and take a look and see if I can find any traditional butterfly blocks. You're so welcome, Miss Jackie. Thank you, Chantel. K-A-U-F-F-M-A-N. It's the Robert Kaufman app. It's a free app you can download. It does all of the math for you. You plug in the size of your quilt and it'll tell you how much binding fabric you need, how many strips of binding to cut. I believe, Wanda, that you can get it on your PC as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think there is a website that you can use, Robert Kaufman. Not 100% sure, but I'm like 85% sure that, yeah, you can do it on your computer too. Yeah, that is such a great, useful app. I've talked about it several times in my videos. If you're not good at math and you don't know how to figure out your binding, you plug in a few numbers and it does everything for you. Yes, so this will be block number 32. 32 blocks. Pineapple block. Miss Hazel, I'll take a look at that. I do have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks already planned for the next 4 days, but we'll see. I'll take a look at those 2 blocks later this afternoon. Yes, I love this block tomorrow. We're making pinwheels. We're making pinwheels. If you missed these measurements, you can come back and grab them. I'm going to show you my finished block for today, the hourglass block. I think that is adorable. I think it looks way more complicated than it actually is. I call those blocks pretender blocks. It's a faker, y'all. It's a faker because it's pretending to be more complicated than it actually was. It actually came together really easily, right? Looks harder than it is. It looks harder than it is. You could knock out several of these blocks in one sewing session. I cannot wait to add it to the design wall. We didn't finish all of our this or that questions. That's okay. I'll save a couple for tomorrow. I'll have a head start for our questions for tomorrow. That's okay. That's okay. I want to thank you everybody for tuning in to our 31st quilt block. And if you've been watching this series from the beginning, thank you so much. If you just started tuning in, y'all, all these videos are saved in a playlist. So you can just scroll through them. You can make any of the blocks that you see behind me on the wall. There's a video for each and every one of them. And we're going to keep on going until this shut-in is over with. So we got lots more blocks to do. The main purpose of these videos is hoping that we learn something along the way. This is the first time I've made this block. But the main purpose is so that we just have some interaction. We keep each other company, right? We're going to have a happy distraction to look forward to each and every day to fill our time with something that we enjoy. Miss Sally, hold on a second. Let me pull up tomorrow's block. Tomorrow's block. For tomorrow, you would need to cut 15.5-inch square for setting triangles and 8-inch square for corners. Sally did the math for y'all. There you go. If you're wondering if you want to put this block on point for a quilt, Sally just did the math for you. You would need to cut 15.5-inch squares for your setting triangles. Those are the triangles that fill in the sides and the bottom empty areas. And you need an 8-inch square for the corners. Sally, you are on it. Thank you so much. We usually start in the around 12 to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. That can vary. Harlan's working from home too during the shut-in, so if he has work meetings, I work around that, so the time can vary, but I try to come on between 12 and 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Is the block tomorrow a lot of half-square triangles? It is. But guess what? We're going to make 8 of them at one time. So we're going to make 8 red ones and 8 green ones really quickly. And I'm going to show you how to do that tomorrow. Ah, Celeste says there's a traditional butterfly block that has snowballed corners. Really, Miss Celeste? It would save me a lot of time searching for it if you want to send it to me, either over on Facebook in a private message, or you can email me at lisacapenquilts@gmail.com. I'll take a look at it. It has to be a block that any of the designers out there haven't made. Like, it has to be a traditional quilt block that's been around for centuries and centuries. I'll take a look at it. What are we going to call the quilts? Well, we've named this series Happy at Home Together. I don't really know what I'm going to call this quilt. I'm not sure. Y'all are so welcome. I'm glad to spend the time with you as well. Yes, Miss Wanda, you have a great point. You have a great point. By the end of this series, when we can all resume our normally scheduled program in life, we should have half square triangles down to a science, right? We should have lots and lots of training on half square triangles, which is really good, y'all. Which is really good because a lot of the traditional quilt blocks, even a lot of the newer quilt patterns that you purchase, include half square triangle units. So this is perfect. We're doing so much practice right now. And practice makes perfect, right? We should be getting better and better at the half square triangles. Dove at the window. I will write that down. Lisa's quilt. That's funny. Quilting with friends. This and that quilt. I like that. Quarantined at home with friends. COVID-19 survivor. Yeah, you could call it that. Oh, Vicky, your pinwheels are only 3 inches. All right, put them back in your stash and save them for a project. We'll make some more tomorrow. I think they need to be bigger than that tomorrow. All right, everybody. I've enjoyed this time spending with you this afternoon. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I've got a couple ideas suggested today. I'll give those blocks a look over. And yes, tomorrow, join me for the Honey's Choice. 10-inch quilt block tomorrow, y'all. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you all have a fantastic evening. If you want to share your pictures, make sure to send them to me. Post them on Creative Crew. I'd love to see them. And until I see you tomorrow, have a great evening. Happy crafting. Be safe with the weather. Bye, everybody.